Right. Welcome everyone to Sober Sunday. This is a time of stimulating conversations about life, different topics in life. And I'm excited about this, our 20th episode. It's been a great journey, great conversations, a lot of feedback from most of you, lots of questions, and I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. And lots of people have said we are very excited to hear this. So today we're talking about the 4 phases of relationships, of marriage. So whether you're married or not, those of you in marriage, those of you have been there and it didn't work for one reason or another, this is a great conversation. Those of you are planning one day to be in marriage, you need to be here. Want to invite all of you to, in the different pages that we are in, that you're going to give us your comments. You're going to invite your friends, host watch parties in Rwanda, in Uganda, in Kenya, wherever you're listening in from. We would love to know where you're getting us from. So feel free to chat with us, to talk to us as we go through this conversation. Now, I know it's going to fly because there's a lot to say, and we're going to be taking a few of your questions. So feel free to write in your questions and comments. We're going to be sampling some of them. First come, first served. But we're grateful to have 2 couples here that have been in marriage for a while. They're going to tell us how long. My name is Simon Bevy, been married for 22 years now. It's been a good journey, challenging in many ways, like we're going to be hearing today. But looking forward to our conversation. So let me introduce my guest so that we can get down into this exciting conversation. Let me start with the farthest. We have our friends, business leaders, sorry, I think I got lost there a little bit, but we have our friends from Rwanda, business leaders, and they have pastored before. They have been youth pastors at CLA, a church that I've loved to connect with, and I just want to introduce them. That's Hassan and John, and I'd love for you to introduce yourself and let us know a bit of what you do and how long you've been married and a bit of your family. Hassan.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pastor Simon. Thank you for having us on Sober Sunday. It's a joy for us to be here. My name is Hassan Chibirango, and this is my lovely wife, Joan Chibirango. We met at the university about 16 years ago, and we got married fresh out of college. 3 months after we graduated, we got married, and we've been married 12 years. Going on 13, and the Lord has blessed us with 4 children: Gabriela, who is 10, Ariella, who is 8, Josiah and Joella, who are 6-year-old twins. And we serve a local church here called Christian Life Assembly. I serve as the men's pastor, and my wife supports me as the men's pastor as well. And up until last year, we were serving full-time as youth pastors of the church until the Lord called me to transition back into the marketplace, where I'm in the leadership development space, and we work to raise and add value to leaders. And but we still volunteer. We serve in a voluntary capacity as pastors at our church. I'll let maybe Joan say a little bit more of what she does as well.
Hi.
And maybe Joan, as you say something, you can also let us know, how long did you date before you got married? Yes, John.
Like Hassan said, my name is John, and I'm a baker, I'm a homeschooler, and I'm into ministry at church. And how long did we date? We dated for 2.5 years before we got married. Yes, that's how long we dated, and it's been a beautiful journey. with ups and downs, but a beautiful one to get up from the downs that you go through. Yes, thank you.
All right, we're really grateful that you're joining us from Kigali, and it's been exciting to hear the COVID-19 cases there have gone really down. So we celebrate with you, and have my pastors and actually the first people I had teach about the 4 phases of marriage, and they've been talking about it for a long time, and we have been able to teach alongside each other as well. Pastor Murithi and Carol and Jao. So let me invite you. I know we missed you last week, and I let the people know you are not able to come in. So I would love you to introduce yourselves and also talk about how long you've been married.
All right, I've been nominated to start. Yeah, Murithi and Carol and Jao, we love Sober Sunday. We've been here before, and we have been married now for 26 years. So I know that sounds so old, but we're not old. Trust me. We got married when we were in primary school, and we have 3 children. One who's 18, Moini, 19. Oh yeah, okay, 19. Are you serious? 19. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, realizations. And then twins who are 16, who are in their final year of high school. And so that's a bit about us. Serve as pastors. That's our full-time job, actually. It's not what pays the bills, because we do other things, but it's what we do. A bit like Hassan, we sort of volunteer to some levels at church. But yeah, we love couples stuff to do with marriage, stuff to do with relationships. I think it's just something, as you say, we've been doing it for a very long time. Yeah. So.
Pastor Simon had asked how long we dated before we got married. We dated for 3 years, and you are not remembering that it's 3 years.
It's 26 years, a long time ago.
26 is a long time to remember how long we've been dating. Yeah, but we dated for 3 years and then got married. If I say the year we got married, some people were still in diapers. So I don't know whether we should say the year, but 1994, that's when we got married.
Yeah.
My goodness, it sounds like,
ancient history.
It just sounds like ancient history.
Yeah, but you said we were dating before married, but we're still dating even now.
Yeah, it never ends, for sure. I did not say we have 3 children as well with my wife, Sophia, 18, turning 19 in a few months. Wow. The firstborn, and then we have 15 and we have 11. So Hassan, we're a little ahead of you guys, but we dated for 4 years, about 4.5, because we met on our first year in college, and we married just shortly after the 4th year after we graduated. So about 4.5 years. That's how long we dated. So I think people are waiting to hear about these 4 phases, and we can start with the first one. Of course, people meet together, and for one reason or another, we say in Africa, blood agrees with each other. I don't know how that makes sense anywhere else, but we say you just hit it off with someone. I remember the first time that happened with my wife, Sophia, and I just liked her, and I thought this is a person I want to know. We had met somewhere a little out of Nairobi, and I said hi to her, but she ignored me. She has a different story to that. She says she did not hear, but I think she had and ignored me. But later we got to hit it off, and we talked together, and eventually we started dating. But it begins, with a lot of sparks, a lot of feelings, a lot of passion. So what's the first stage of marriage and relationships?
Well, the first stage is called a dream. And basically what happens is, you're right. There's things that predispose you to feel sparks for certain people. And it's a very interesting thing, because when you watch the movies, it's almost like you are created for this one person, and when you meet them, all these things just align. But the reality is a little more mundane than that. We all are hardwired to be attracted to a certain type of person, and that type of person is usually predisposed in us because of our family background. It's funny when you talk to somebody who's been married for a while, they'll tell you, actually, there are things I see on my spouse that remind me that now I can see. This is actually my mom. I didn't even realize when I met her. There's some things about her that just very much like my mom or my sister, or something that predisposed me, because that's what I was trained when I was looking for to look for in a certain person, or even personalities, because we have hardwired personalities in us.
So you're saying like
you don't look like my mom, but the things you look like are very. Now, 26 years later, I can tell you, sometimes I look at them, oh my God. So I think the things, and you don't see them, they're not obvious things, but they make you feel, this one we agree with. And there are those people, by the way, you meet, and as beautiful as they are, as sharp, as smart as everything they have, something in you just knows, this one is not my type. So the thing about the dream stage is when you meet the person, there's a lot of there's an emotional connection. There's a sense that this is somebody that I'd like to connect with. I'd like to invest in. Sometimes it happens like in the movies where it, boom, love at first sight. You hear people say, I saw her and I knew we'd get married. Other times it's a slower process of friendship, which was similar to us. Actually, for us, it was a slower process where we were first friends, very good friends.
I was scared of that thing of falling in love. What is that? I think that's too scary. So yes, I thank God it was a friendship.
Yeah, and so, but whichever way, something in you connects and you finally feel, this is somebody I can spend my life with. I'd like to spend my life with. And it's a space where, I consider, the way I think of it is like in the Bible, where the reason it's called the dream is like in the Bible, when Adam married Eve, if you want to put it that way, God had to put him to sleep first. The reality of marriage is not that easy. For those who are watching who are single. And in a sense, that dream phase, it's like God putting Adam to sleep first. For a while, just ignore all these differences, ignore all the things you're going to have to work through. Just fall in love first. The rest you're going to deal with later. And so it's a stage that is full of a lot of expectations and high hopes. When you see differences, you tend to ignore them. So when you see something that doesn't quite agree with your picture of what your dream is, you tend to ignore those, because for you in your mind, you've kind of got this picture of what a spouse should be. And this person has aligned to that picture. So you tend to ignore the things that don't quite fit in you. And when you see something that doesn't quite fit, you hear somebody say, when this one will change, I'll fix this. When we get married, I'm sure she'll change. So we that's what the dream stage is. So we overlook the differences because we're very eager to connect and hang out with this person.
And to be one. In fact, I think we met somebody the other day who was like, they've been married for now about 8 months, and they were saying, we're beginning to learn that we do not have to do everything together.
Yeah.
And probably they got married and then COVID happened, and then they were together, in this one space. But now they're realizing, oh my goodness, actually, we don't need to be together all the time. So you can tell that in that phase, there's such a consuming need to be together. You cannot even agree. You can, disagree. You cannot voice.
You don't have the freedom to voice
your disagreements.
Yeah. So there's a lot of attraction. You don't get to see certain things. It's like you're blind. The way they say love is blind. It's like you're asleep and you're dreaming. And in the dream, this person fits everything you've ever wanted. And what doesn't fit in, you force it to fit in. And you sort of try and rationalize that. I'm going to get back to you to ask, because I know someone may ask, so is it a good thing to actually be blind and not recognize some of those red flags? But before we do that, before we talk about that, let me ask, John, do you remember that stage? I know it's not a long time ago. I know you may feel like you're still in that dream stage, but do you remember that time when you didn't want to leave this handsome gentleman?
Oh, yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. It used to be, he would walk me to the hostel, and then I escort him back to the road, then we walk back to the hostel again, and that is the journey. So I do remember that stage so well.
Yeah. Yeah, Hassan, so after all this courting each other back and forth, you eventually end up married and you're still in the dream stage. What are some of the things you remember you used to do together those times that were very exciting?
That is before marriage or after marriage in the dream stage?
After you got married in the first stage, yeah.
Oh boy. Number one is we got married young. John was 22 and I was 24.
Yeah.
I hadn't really accumulated much, so I remember we had a mattress for a couch in our small living room. We had a very small house. We relocated to Rwanda 3 months after our wedding from Uganda, and I remember we would sit on our mattress and just watch movies, you know. And we would watch movies and we'll have a blanket over ourselves, and we'll just end up sleeping there for the night. You know, and just the two of us, it was just very beautiful moments of just being with us. And we talked a lot. We spent a lot of time doing evening walks in Kigali. We were very new in the city, didn't know many places. We didn't have any friends because we had moved here really on assignment, and that's a story for another day. So all we had was each other, and we spent so many times just getting acculturated to one another and acquainted to one another. That's what I remember the dream stage was. So many movies, an old mattress that was the couch. Before we bought couches.
Yeah. So past time, I think that there's a lot of grace during that point. You know, you don't care whether it's a mattress or a couch. You just love each other. All you have is each other, and that's enough. You know, the rest will have to follow later. But you're just so into each other. You know, a lot of sex, a lot of physical interaction and stuff like that. But what's supposed to be going on during that time? Do you just enjoy it and wait for the next stage, or are there certain things you should be doing to prepare your marriage for the next phase?
You know, it's so funny. Before I answer that, I mean, when Hassan talks, I just laugh because I think many couples can relate to that story. I mean, she grew up in she had a family that was pretty well off, so she had a bedroom that was, had a bathroom, you know, like a self-contained bedroom. The house that I took her out and took her to was smaller than her bedroom. You know, it was like behind some shops, and it was like,
the bathrooms were outside.
The bathrooms were outside the house. I mean, it was like moving from the leafy suburbs to live with this young broke guy. Yeah. And we were happy, you know. I mean, we just loved. We could just, as broke as we were, we really enjoyed each other. So I think I just completely.
My goodness, we were. Yeah. I guess we ate long. Let's just put it that way.
So I mean, the funny thing about it is, it was so much fun with nothing. But I think the thing about that stage, and it's a great question you ask, Pasi, because in that stage, it's so easy when you're newlyweds, when you're dating, in that dream phase, it's so easy to just feel it's just the two of us. Yeah. We don't need anybody else. Happy, we can come out. Well, I mean, us against the world kind of thinking. But I think one of the key things we say in this stage that's so important is you need to start developing mentors and relationships with other couples, because when the challenges come eventually, and they will, you want to have people who can hold you accountable. You want to have people you can walk with. So this is a season to be developing those outside friendships. And I think it's so important because those role models, those couples that are older than you, will actually play a big role later on, even peers, you know. So I think one of the things we challenge couples in this stage is don't stay isolated, don't isolate yourselves, because solid, good Christian friendships, people with value, people you admire, those are going to be a very, very helpful tool for you going forward.
I think too that at this phase, because we have said that you're not free to be yourself, it's like you're fitting into a mold. Your spouse, you have this picture of what your spouse needs to be, and so they fit a certain mold in your mind, and you also have your own picture of what it means to be a perfect husband or a perfect wife. And so we would say you're not pretending, but there's a lot of unrealness that is happening around that time. And when you try to be real, it can be very threatening. So I think there's even just that awareness that, hey, we need to, it's okay to be real. Now that is very threatening, but the whole thing of it's okay to be real. And we do not have to be together, you know, all the time or think the same. Or it's okay to have and to disagree. You know, maybe that's what I would say of somebody who's in that stage. It's okay. You cannot stay. You know, this is a bubble, but there's some things in life that just have to happen.
Yeah, maybe before I come to the Hassans, let me ask you, Carol. There are some ladies who are in that stage. Maybe they are just dating and they feel like this guy is okay, is great, but they are seeing some red flags and they don't want to mess up the relationship. Maybe they've been waiting to date for a long time. What would be your word to them? Because there are some who say, well, I saw that, but I ignored it. I thought I need this marriage, you know, right now I can't rock it. What would be your advice to those who are dating and are beginning to see those signs?
Yes, I think what happens is that whatever it is that you're seeing, whatever red flags that you're seeing and that are a little concerned, I would actually pay attention to them. I would not ignore them. Because the reality is that they become, you see, if these red flags are happening when you're dating, and you know, when you're dating, you're really trying to be in your best behavior. But if you're just seeing some things over here, just understand that it's going to unravel, and it's actually, whatever red flags, they're actually going to be amplified when you get married. And it's going to be very, very painful. I mean, I know that you may be really longing for a relationship, but you don't want a painful relationship. And so I'd rather say you take the courage, be courageous, and walk away at this time before it becomes painful. And probably the question to also ask is that how come you're attracting this kind of a person who and you can see these red flags, and sometimes it may mean you need to work on yourself. You know, we always say a healthy person will attract a healthy person. An unhealthy person will also attract an unhealthy person. So maybe there's a place to say, okay, let me take this as a warning and also as something to work on myself, just so that even as I'm saying, I do want to be in a relationship, I'll enter into a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Moretti,
I think also just to say, maybe another thing I'll add. Yeah, I was going to add also, I wrote a little book called Finders Keepers, and it's really for dating couples. And I think one of the principles that I talk about there is you need to understand what your deal breakers are. Because not everything you're uncomfortable about is a thing. Sometimes you're uncomfortable because the guy is shorter than you. Come on, live with that. You need to understand what the real deal breakers are. And the key things for me have to do with leadership and values. Who is the person's leader? Because if I'm led by, if my lead, you know, the master of my life, who's the master of my life? If the master of my life is God and the master of her life is money, that there will be a problem. So the first thing you need to understand is who's the master, who's in charge. Because if this person is submitted to God and I'm submitted to God, that there's hope. If you have two masters, if you have two different sources of life that you subscribe to, that should be a deal breaker. Because if it's not now, it will be later. And then number two is your values, the thing you love, the thing that drives you, you know. So I always say one leader, one love. If you can sort out those two things and make those your key things, the other things tend to be preferences, you know. And I think values, you know, they dictate how, you know, one of the things I always tell my kids is find out how they talk to their brothers and sisters. If this guy talks to his sisters very rudely, he will talk to you rudely one day. If he doesn't value relationships with his parents, you will also not value, you know. So it's almost like understanding the value system of the person after understanding who their master is. So I keep saying, for me, those two things would be those are the things you should focus on if you're talking about what the real deal breakers are. The rest tend to be they're things that you can deal with, you can walk with and figure out. If it's about one of the ones that people talk to us about is finances, you know, maybe he earns much less than I do. And I think then it's an issue of actually sitting down and discussing, raise the issues, because it may not be a deal breaker, but you need to raise it, because if you might find that as you talk, then you realize, my goodness, this is going to become an explosive issue one day. If we can't deal with it now, we probably will not be able to deal with it down the line. So I think it's just, understanding your deal breakers and then being able to talk boldly about them, even in this.
Yeah. So thank you very much. I think those are good conversations, especially for those who are dating. And thank you for many of you that are saying you're joining us from Rwanda, from Uganda, from outside of Nairobi. Very good conversations going on. Someone who said they started this when they were in class 1. So Hassan, the people beat you in terms of starting your relationship. And others say they started pretty early, but good conversations are going. So John, let me come to you. During that dream stage, you know, one of the things you remember, those first years or months when you were really excited, what are some of the things you tolerated, in a sense, about Hassan?
Oh, the one thing that I know was the socks.
Yeah.
It's like the eyes kind of divert from the hamper to the ground. So
Yeah.
it was really hard for him to see the hamper where the socks were supposed to go. So they would always end up down. And but you reach a point and say, you know what? Keep this.
That's not
I'll
a deal
pick up
breaker.
I'll pick up the socks and just be happy. That's one factor that I just tolerated, and some other things you just a bit secret. So,
Thank you.
But
like, you think about it and you're like, did I actually tolerate that? Or I was supposed to fight that? So, but you just keep them at that, yes.
Yeah, so a lot of grace towards each other. What about you, Hassan? What do you remember about that season and some things that you were almost like blind to?
Yeah, I think for me, when we were new in marriage, one of the things about Joanne, again, because of her past, now we had a similar past. Both of us were orphaned when we were young. And it's one of the things that brought us together. You know, they say misery loves company. So I became like John's sense of security and her world. So really early on, in a few months in our marriage, we came to start a business in Kigali, and because we knew no one, Joan was staying home all day. So I'd leave the house in the morning, go to the business, come back at night. She'd literally, then that's when she had prepared for me. She wanted to talk and offload how the day was, how the series she was watching went, and I would come spent. Anyway, I felt she became a little too needy and too, I don't know how to put it, needy. Let me use that. And it became a bit uncomfortable for me. I wanted her to have her space, but I was her space. I was her world, and I couldn't take that just earlier on in our marriage. And it became a bit of a discomfort for me because I was her sense of security, a sense of comfort, and for me that was because I was independent right from the time when I was a teenager. So I get into this marriage and I can no longer be as independent as I wanted to be, and I had somebody who depends on me for literally almost everything, and that gave me the creeps, and I felt uncomfortable with that.
Yeah. Well, I like that. And I think what you're saying, Moredi, is that these things begin to come up now. For a while, you've been tolerating each other, so to speak, because there's been a lot of grace and a lot of attraction and all of that. But then some issues begin to come up and you begin to say, no, this is not right. And that sort of prepares you to go to the next stage, which you can introduce now. But before you introduce Hassan, maybe you can say briefly, and then Pastor M can take over. Felista Modoni is saying, what is needed in the church today is more teaching on biblical marriage and marriage preparation for young people and families within church. People are entering marriage today with zero preparation. 5 to 10 weeks of premarital counseling will never be enough preparation. What's your thought, Hassan?
Yeah, I think premarital classes should be accompanied by people who've been married opening up their lives to those that have not yet been married and walking a journey with them and modeling a certain aspiration for those that haven't yet been married. Joanne and I, for the last 12 years, every single Sunday, including today, for I think maybe 6-7 years, we've opened our home every Sunday and we cook a big meal and we invite people over, and we are very, very intentional inviting young single people or those that are dating over. And our lives are open. They see how we relate, they see how we parent, even for a few hours. And that has inspired many young couples aspiring to get married to have some kind of aspiration they look to. So we share both our strengths, our weaknesses. And I think for me, that's the missing link, is that many couples are not offering their lives to really be a model, to show that, hey, this works. It's not a bed of roses. We have struggles, we have weaknesses, to be able to work with couples. So for me, if that can be coupled with the premarital counseling, then that would be helpful. But again, it's one of those where we need to get as many couples open up their lives to younger couples as possible.
Okay. Pastor M, I know you can say something short, brief about that, but Mutindika Kutri says, I understand any untoward behavior while dating, you multiply that by 10, that's how it's going to be in marriage. And she's asking whether that's true. So maybe you can answer that as you go to the next stage. I know the next stage is where a lot of the issues are.
I'll let Carol do the next stage, but I think I'll say it's probably true. But I think what Carol said earlier is important, because it's easy to just look at the other person and not look at yourself. And you tend to attract people like you. Somebody once said, and I completely believe, that you marry at the level of your maturity. You also date at the level of your maturity. So if you are attracting losers, if you're attracting people who are addicts, people who are approval addicts, people who are, there's something about you. You need to be looking inwards and saying, what is it about me that is making such people to like me? Because the reality is, when you focus on you and you mature, then the people that were attracted to you, they stop being attracted to you. There's something that they were seeing in you that was drawing them to you. And so that's one of the things I keep saying, if you're noticing all these things, then there's probably something that they're noticing in you as well, because you're together. My thought is, work on you. And this is what I say when you're single. Read books about marriage, grow in your faith, grow in your spiritual, make sure that you're growing into maturity, because then you will attract mature people. And you will never find perfect people. Even the person you marry, you will have issues. But what kind of issues? I think that's what we're really talking about. Because if you have walked into some level of maturity, then you'll attract people who have issues, but they're mature enough to deal with it. Yeah. So I think that's what I'd say. So yes, it's true. The things you see, they will multiply. But then what you're seeing then, if you're seeing a lot of it, then it should tell you, start looking inwards to say, what is it about me that's bringing me to people who are reflecting this kind of behavior, this kind of value? So,
yeah. I think that's true. They say birds of the same feather
flock together. Absolutely.
Flock together. So whatever it is you see there's something attracting you, but also opposites attract. Maybe there's something you desire in that person that you don't have. So really, relationships are a reflection of you, what you are and you're not, and what you're not. Carol, so we're going to the next stage now. You are waking up from the dream because you don't sleep forever. You're beginning to see things like, Joanne begins to see this guy just leaves his socks everywhere. What's wrong with him? And she begins to see this guy is just untrained in several areas. What do you do now? What happens next?
Pastor Simon, I want to share. In fact, I asked my husband, please let me share this one, because I can tell you the time when I began to move from the dream phase to the second stage, which is the drama phase. And what happened is that we were in a seminary together, and of course, we were nearly married. We were 2 years into marriage when we went for further studies. And when you look at movies and even the books that we read, there's a certain impression or image that is given there about relationships. And one of them is that you're 2 by 2, that this is your soulmate, this is your, and probably for women, we feel it a lot more than guys feel it. I mean, there was Hassan saying that Joanne was, anyway, but I just felt, yeah, we're supposed to be together. And so this is what I used to do. When we were in seminary, sometimes we would have separate classes. And so I would go and wait for him, for him to finish his class. And I would wait patiently for him so that we could either walk home together or go for lunch or whatever we were going to do next. And then I noticed the man was not very interested. It wasn't such a big deal for him that I was waiting. In fact, if anything, maybe it's what Hassan was saying. My husband was probably a lot more independent than I was. So I was like, what is this? I can't, I can't wait around. I mean, I'd also been raised by my mom, towards independence. And so I realized, no, this cannot happen. And I think that's a time now, I think we began to move into the drama phase, where I realized that our expectations were unmatched. So whereas, I felt, this is what love is, I wait for him, we walk together, we are 2 by 2. I realized that our expectations were unmatched. And I must say that was very disappointing, very disappointing. Because that's what all novels and movies show. That is what true love is. And I don't know any woman who doesn't think that way. And so I remember just feeling resentful, having bitterness, blaming him for the fact that we're not connecting as well or as closely as we need to be connecting. And these are just very typical characteristics of the second phase, which we call our drama phase. And there's a lot of blaming. And unfortunately, at that phase, spouses are not able to see the impact of their behavior. So you're just feeling very wronged and very wounded, but you cannot tell what the impact of that behavior is. You cannot even tell the impact of your own rotten behavior, your own tantrums or your own, you can't tell, because at that time, it's all about you and the things that are not working for you in that marriage. There are very strong projections of what this person ought to be doing. And these are a lot from your family of origin. So there are expectations I would have of my husband over here. And I'm like, this is what my dad did. How come you're not doing them? Or this is what men do. And it would be men because of what I have seen my father doing. Or there are some things that I would do for him and he'd be like, why are you doing this for me? And I'm like, this is the way this is the way a wife is supposed to be behaving. And so it's like, there's a lot of should and ought to. There's a lot of assumptions. But and there are things that we haven't really talked about. And because of those unmet expectations, then there's a lot of conflict and blaming that is going on. No wonder it is called drama. No wonder. It's quite dramatic.
So you're saying there's a lot of disappointment, unmatched expectations. You feel like this is a dream I had and this guy or this lady is not fitting into it. So you're disappointed. In the process, you begin fighting each other. Sometimes you begin to try and change the other person to be exactly what you want.
Not sometimes, all the time.
All the time. So the other person becomes a project of change. You want to manipulate them, to shout at them, to do different things to make sure that you exactly, get the person that you wanted. I remember Sophia expected that I would be, now that I was a lot in church as a pastor, that I'll be reading devotions, leading devotions like every time. And I felt like I have been doing that for the world. I need a break. And she's pressurizing me, said, what kind of a man are you? And you're not leading devotions. And the more she said that, the more I didn't want to do it. And the more I resisted it, because I felt, you should be the one to help me out once in a while. I've led devotions for 1,000 people out there. I need to relax. And then for me, I think what disappointed me a lot is I'm a creative in a sense, so I appreciate well done sitting room and curtains and stuff like that. And I realized later that I was a creative and she was not. And there's some things that mattered a lot to me that were not a big deal for her. And I'm thinking, women are meant to make the home like the best looking place that it's meant to be. But, you know, I realized that I had some gifts that she did not have, and she had some I didn't have. But now we are fighting because of what you expect the other person to have that you have. So it becomes a conflict and a lot of trying to manipulate each other. Is that true, Pastor M?
Absolutely. And I mean, we had, it was very simple, very easy. Sometimes you just have an argument and you wonder, what was that about? You know, I mean, and we had ridiculous arguments. We'd visit her home. I remember one, we visited her home, and then we had a lovely evening. And then at the end, as we're leaving the house, as we enter the car, as we're driving out, I say, so what a lovely evening was that? That was. And she says, yeah. You know, that time you just know already there's problems. One syllable answer. Huh? I really enjoyed talking to your mom. Yeah. So then now you start digging to find out, what did I do? Because now at this point you know you've done something wrong, you know?
Yeah.
So she says, oh, you spent the whole time talking to my sister. You didn't even have, you guys, I mean, you didn't even allow other people to talk. Then you realize in their family, that's the rule. Everybody, you don't talk, you don't, everybody has to be given a chance. It's very democratic. My family is not like that. But I'm expected to know when I enter her family that now these are the rules, you know, the family she grew up with and she knew the rules. So now we get home and we're not talking and it's a serious issue. And later on you're thinking, what was that? I mean, why did we even argue about the rules in your family that don't, you know? So, I mean, it would be very small. It would be little things like those. I mean, you talked about salt. Sometimes it would be the toothpaste. I mean, I'm very methodical with how my toothpaste comes out. It comes out from the bottom. It comes out neatly.
All the way.
For her, the toothpaste is squeezed like this. You know, I think she just buys it and just starts. You just come and find fingerprints on. So I mean, I just find myself so angry. I'm like, so eventually, anyway, we settle that by just buying his and hers. You know, it's like, this is your brand. This is the brand. Don't touch me. So I mean, now you look at it later and you can laugh. But at the time, I mean, there were some significant areas of conflict. But part of it is because I was trying to make her like me, and she's trying to make me like her or her dream. I'm trying to make her like my dream, like what I thought a woman should. And I think that's where the challenge, that's where the friction comes now.
Yeah. So there are unwritten rules that you're expected to know. There are unsaid expectations sometimes, and you're fighting about that. I remember we fought about who closed the main door. And it's, and it's because of the family of origin. I mean, I was raised by a single mom. She did stuff in the evening down, you know, in near the kitchen. So she locked the doors because she was the last one to go to bed. So my wife expects me to do that, and I go to sleep, and she said, "What's wrong with you?" And several times we didn't lock the door until morning, and we just begin to fight over silly things because there's a feeling like I didn't get what I wanted. It's like, I think I've heard you say, Pastor M, it's a buyer's remorse. You know, you felt like you got this person and they're not exactly what you thought. Joan and Hassan, what were your conflicts during drama? And are you still in drama? And I know we're going to come back because I think a lot of couples break up around this time. So we're going to spend a bit of time in it by looking at how do you resolve these issues? Do they ever end? Are they supposed to be for 1 year or 10 years? John, what are some of the things you start fighting this man about very strongly?
Initially, when we had just gotten married, so I knew he was going to take care of me. Everything will go well. He's working, and then I realized, hey, I just graduated from school. I need to get a job. I did not study to stay home. And Hassan says, just stay home. I'll take care of you. I'm like, I did not get educated to stay home. I have to get a job. He's like, you have to get a job in the field you studied. I'm like, who says? It is my life. I have to get a job in what I want. And we argued so much. And it was till I got my way, he had to let me get my way so that we can have peace. And then there's some silly things like a mosquito net. You know how you sneak in bed fast so that you don't have to put on a mosquito net? And then you get out fast because you don't want to hang it up. So you get a solution, get a repellent, and everything is sorted because no one wants to put the mosquito net down and fix it nicely. So there's some things that were really silly, and you look at it and you're like, did we actually argue about that? But at that time, they were very important. Who closed the door? That is a very huge factor. And I think that one we still argue about it. Who closes the door? You'll come to the bedroom first so that you don't close the doors. So there are some solutions you come up with to help you get around those dramas. So maybe Hassan can talk about some dramas.
Hassan, I thought you were a pastor. What's wrong with you not closing the door and stuff like that?
Yeah, I remember when we got married 3 months after our wedding, we moved to Rwanda, like I said, to start a business, and we really didn't have people we knew here. So we had no support system. So we packed the little belongings we had in a bus. We get on the border, they put a seal on the bus, and the things are brought to Kigali to the customs. Everything of ours, all our suitcases and stuff. So it took about, was it 3 weeks? About 3 weeks to get our property cleared. They wanted us to pay duty on them. We said, look, these are personal effects. So one day we go to the customs with Joan to go plead and say, guys, everything was in there. I mean, we're talking even our undergarments, everything was in there. We had to buy some clothes just to, and then I remember they refused to give us our things. Joan got so frustrated and she decided to walk. She says, I am walking back to Uganda. So she walks and leaves me at the customs. She started walking away, going to God knows where. I mean, we didn't know the roads and everything. And I was walking behind her, pleading. I'm saying, don't leave me. She says, you know what? You got me from a decent family. I'm going to go back to Uganda. When you sort yourself out here in Kigali, you'll come and fetch me. So we're like, and in Rwanda, they have a culture. People don't argue in public. They are very conservative people. So people saw us acting like wild people on the road, and I'm saying, where are you going? How are you? And she took the wrong route. I'm like, so I remember that was that was our welcome in Rwanda. And obviously so many other things followed. Just the compatibility in and of itself. It's like a square peg getting into a round hole. I felt she was infringing into my space. I wanted my independence. She was really getting too personal with me, and so for me, it was really very difficult to adjust. And I can tell you, Pastor Simon, our first year was really, to say the least, too much drama. And, I said very many hurtful things to Joan. And I thought I was really going to lose her. Because, I mean, my selfishness came to the fore. And I could not recognize myself. After some time, I mean, after we got some counsel and stuff, I look back, I'm like, was that me? So I think for me, one of the things that become very dramatic is that compatibility you're getting to fit. And that can be a bit messy. And that was a bit of a story.
That's so funny to hear. But I think Pastor Terry Njogu is saying, in short, choose your issues and battle fairly or wisely. And there are some rules so that you don't kill each other during this stage. What are some of the rules? How do you begin to deal with these conflicts? Because they can get intense. And is there a place where you say, maybe we're not compatible, it's time to bounce?
No, let me start with that one. No, you know what? The Bible, when you are in your church ceremony, the pastor said, "What God has put together, let no man, including yourself or
Oh,
woman."
wow.
So I don't think that incompatibility is the grounds for divorce. In fact, there is no human being who is compatible with another human being. Even if you married your identical twin, we are different. And those differences are the reason we're having those conflicts. And so even if you marry somebody else, and here is a sobering fact, if you leave this one, and many people who've gotten married again have discovered this, when you leave this one and you move into the next one, especially if you've not dealt with the issues within you, you will marry the same person, just with a different face, different family. And you're going to find yourself, and many people who divorced end up divorcing again because they thought the issue was the other person and not understanding it's actually they who carried it in and then discovered that they attracted somebody with similar issues. So I think the key thing is to say, how do we work on it?
Before you go into the working on it, there's something that Hassan said, which is very, very important. And that is this phase actually reveals to us our selfishness, our sinfulness and our selfishness. And usually I know we blame the other person, but if we could just take a moment to understand that, yes, that this is what this phase is, it's revealing our sinfulness, both of us, and our selfishness. And and only I have that ability to change myself. Not and I cannot even change the other person, even if I tried. But you had asked the you know, just how to, yeah, you can go ahead.
So the principles,
the principles,
Okay. So I think the first thing is just remember that God brought marriage to you for your holiness, not for your happiness. Marriage is not a tool for happiness. It's God's tool for holiness. And what he's doing through your spouse is helping you discover those things. Exactly what Hassan said. I love that, because what he's really saying is, you know, God actually helped. In fact, that question you're asking, was that really me? It actually was, but you see, it needed Joanne to help you to see that. And it's like God looked at you, said, this guy is such a cool guy, but I know exactly what his issues are. Let me give him the person who will help him discover those issues and have to deal with them. And I believe that once you begin to understand this, you stop seeing your spouse as the enemy. You start to see what is it that what are those issues that God is using to bring holiness to me, and what is God wanting me to do about these issues. So that's number one. Just understand that, you know what, marriage is a tool for holiness, not for happiness. Happiness will come after holiness. So stop focusing so much on you got married thinking this was about happily ever after. It's actually holy ever after, and then happiness will follow. The second thing I'll also say about it is begin to develop a long-term view of marriage. Every couple goes through these issues, every single couple. By the way, if you ever meet a couple who've been married 10, 12 years, and then they tell you we've never had drama, that couple is in trouble. In fact, I usually say I'm really worried for that couple, because, you know, drama is the way that you start to, again, meld into one another. God is sewing off this part and making it fit into this part through the drama that we're going through. And so understand, when you see a couple that have never gone through drama, there's a problem. And I'm not saying that you should look forward to it, but I'm saying when you get married, the reality is when the dream starts to, as you're going through the dream, you'll get to a place where you start now having to be real and to say, who did I really marry? Because when I got married, I married a dream. But who is this person that I really married? When you start actually discovering the person, there will be drama. So understand that this is actually inevitable. Every couple go through it, and people overcome it. Every happy couple actually has overcome this. And so when we discover that, by the way, it gave us a lot of freedom. Because for me, I think I was at that place where I was feeling, as you were saying earlier, did I make a mistake? Am I doomed to be unhappy forever? You know, is this the end of happiness for me? And then just realizing, oh, you mean this is normal. And that normalizing of it just made me very relaxed about it. And then the next thing I'll just share is, this is where those friends we talked about become helpful. Because when you have mentor couples, then you can hang out with those mentor couples. And for us, because we had mentor couples at that point, they are the ones who helped us normalize. And you know, when you start talking to people real, then you're like, oh, you also went through this. Because people don't talk about this stuff sometimes. Huh? Then you start to discover, oh, you mean even you guys, because you've always looked so happy. And then, no, we've also gone through this. And it's like, oh, okay. So getting those mentors into your space is a very helpful thing. We read a lot of books as well at that stage. We'd read together. And that was very helpful. So those are just some of the things. And then the last one I'll say is learn to fight clean. This is critical. One of the things we say, even though you're in drama and you're disagreeing, there's some rules you must observe and you must set them for yourself. For us, we have to set some rules. One of them was never raise your voice. I grew up in a family where raising your voice is not a sign of anything except that you just have a hot point to deliver.
It's not a sign of aggression.
It's not a sign of aggression. We raise our voices routinely. But what I found is whenever I raise my voice, it completely killed the story. Yeah. So we made a rule. You know what? When we're having a discussion between us, I never raise my voice. We also raised we made another rule that came now from her side about waterworks. We just said, save the waterworks, save the drama, because what happened is whenever when you're talking and she burst out crying, she's won. It's like it's just unfair. I can't fight. I don't know what to do now at that point. So we just agreed, save the waterworks. In the middle of a conversation, it's better you just pause the conversation, go to another place, finish, come back. But don't use tears because you can manipulate the other person through them. Of course, there are things that I tell couples, like there's some things that are just unacceptable. You cannot, we talked about don't hit below the belt. Hit below the belt is using those things where you're like, you're just like your mother, or, no wonder your parents left each other. There's some things you cannot say. So we just said you cannot use language that is disrespectful. But also, and this we never said it because this was not an issue for us, but I know it is for many couples. Violence is not acceptable in any form. So somebody slapping, somebody pushing, that doesn't fit in drama. That's not normal drama. If that happens, don't try and justify it. Get help because that is not something that is actually acceptable at all in a Christian marriage. So I think when you set some ground rules, which help you talk. I mean, one of the other conversations, because we're very different. I'm the kind of person when there's an offense, I want to talk about it. Let's deal with it. I can't sleep. Let's finish. And for her, she needs to process. She needs to take time. So we agreed that we can always, when we used to play, I don't know in Rwanda whether they have this, but in Kenya, when kids play, they have a thing called parks. You put your fingers like this and you say parks. Parks means I can't run anymore. Just give me space. I'm out of the game for a second. I'll come back. So we actually allowed a rule for parks. If things are too heated, you can actually say, okay, I can't talk about this anymore right now. It's too emotional. I need to come back to it. And if you called for parks, it meant that we actually had to stop the conversation. However, we also had a rule with that one that said, when you ask for parks, ask for when you want the conversation to resume. Because you can call for parks and it's a way of also avoiding the conversation. So we said, if you call for parks, then it means that you say, can we talk about this? Give me a day. Let me focus. Tomorrow, this time, we'll have a conversation. And the person would be obliged to say, okay, let's do that. So those were our rules. As a couple, set your own rules that allow you, whenever there's a disagreement, you're able to have a respectful and good conversation. Because you will have many of those conversations before you really know each other and begin to be connected in that way. So those are some of the things you can be doing.
I love that. And you said marriage is not about happiness, but about holiness. And I know some of you listening in may not be Christians, so holiness may not be a goal for you, but we're saying it's about maturity as well. As someone has said, marriage is the last chance you have to grow up. And so this is a time to change some things in you, take responsibility over yourself, get to see what are the issues. And I know we're going to get back to it. I think one of the things that really helped us is I come to John and Hassan and tell us how you have overcome some of your drama issues. Is we decided to drill deep to know the root issues. Because sometimes we'll be fighting and you don't know even why we are fighting. For example, I would feel very offended when my wife, by any chance, tried to compare me with someone else. I would be so offended, out of proportion. And later I learned, growing up, I was compared a lot with other kids. So it's like every time she compared me or gave a hint of comparison, I blew up because I was reacting for 10 years when I was a child of being compared. So being able to know the root issues of a conflict, and you drill deep and you get to deal with those, so that that's how I think you mature. You say, let's work down. What are the beliefs we have deep within, or other issues of insecurity and others we need to deal with, so that we don't stay in the same conflicts forever. Joanne, what are some of the ways you have resolved those conflicts? You gave some examples, but some ways that you have seen yourself to a better place, that you have survived not hurting each other.
I think one of the things that really helped us is finding a couple. In that time when we had a lot of drama, we found a couple that was really helpful. We sought out to find a way to help us in that drama stage, and it was our pastors, because when you're in Rwanda, we left our couple, our mentor couple in Uganda, so we needed someone who was close to us. So we had to find a couple that would be really helpful, that would walk with us a journey, and that was our pastor, the church that we had joined then. It was our pastor couple and the wife that helped us really well walk that journey, and they kind of helped us sober up and get to understand that, you know what, you're in this for life. So you had better work out these things. So you had better find a solution to whatever is going on. If your clothes are being held in Majerua, what solution can we have so that you can get those clothes out, not walk back to Uganda? There's some things that we needed to just grow up and understand that this can be sorted out in a way that is mature. Not in, it felt like we were kind of having the childish moments in our lives to pile up, grow up, and get on our feet again and find a way of solving some issues. So it's been really helping, and you need to think through before you start acting up all these ways that, especially ladies, we get to act up a lot, but we need to mature up, knowing that this is for life, not just for the moment. So yeah, that has really been helpful for us.
Well, thank you. So you're saying, looking at the solutions, that we need to we find solutions and not just be childish in the way we handle things. And I think there's childishness packed in each one of us, and it tends to show up, during that time. Hassan, what are some other ways we can survive this drama stage? Before I come back to the Moredis and ask, when does conflict go bad? When is it time to actually say this will not work? And what are some of the main things we do during that state, so that some who have gotten to a point where they realize they needed to move out, ladies or men, can understand that? And when you do that, what do you do even after you leave? How does drama help you work on yourself? But Hassan, what are some other ways that we can actually help work conflict out, because it's part of reality?
I think for me, the role of my faith has been very important. Number one is, I remember a time where God took me on a journey where I had to face my fears, and I had to face this carnal man who was, wanted to have his way. And I remember just the Holy Spirit whispering to me and having conversations with me and saying, look, I've given you headship over this person. This is my child. This is my daughter. You have no right to treat them any way that you want. And for me, it sobered me up, but it took a yielding of myself in humility, realizing that, left to myself, I would destroy this thing called marriage. So I had to rely a lot on Christ and on the leading of the Holy Spirit. And I remember in a special way, God took me to Ephesians 5 and the instruction he gives husbands. And when you look at the things that husbands are commanded to do, love your wives as Christ loved the church, that he gave himself up for her. Yeah. And he told me, that is your model. That is your example. And I don't expect anything less from you, because she is a bride to you. And for me, how that is tethered to the church, the way Christ loved us unconditionally, and how he took us in messed up, broken. I think for me, I had to go through that journey And the Lord began to work on me. And of course, I came and I repented before Joanne. And one of the other things that for us is very, very key in our lives is accountability. For the last 10 years, I've been walking a journey of accountability with some men, godly men, men after God's own heart. And these are guys who, I'm the popular one in the group, but I'm not a fan of theirs. They tell it to me as it is. They correct me. They make sure that I'm in line. And there's certain things that we agreed with John. We said, you know what? We came into this institution and this covenant broken. But I remember one time we had a song by Casting Crowns called Broken Together. I don't know if you've heard that song. Powerful, powerful song. And we said, you know what? We're going to hold each other hand in hand and walk this journey. Bliss will be in heaven, but on this journey we shall walk broken together. And you know, the more we yield ourselves to Christ, the more he actually makes something beautiful out of us. 12 years in, we look back, I am so remorseful and, you know, ashamed of who I was in the first maybe 2 years, 3 years of my marriage. But then I see a work of sanctification and the work of restoration that the Lord is doing. So I guess what I'm saying is, especially for men, we need to humble ourselves and we need to yield ourselves fully to Christ, because he alone has the sanctifying work, the cleansing work, so that he can present us beautifully, to treat these girls with the honor and respect they deserve.
Yeah, I think part of courage, thank you very much, Hassan. Part of courage for us men is to swallow our pride and be able to say, I'm sorry. And to say, I am broken. I think a lot of time we take the wrong ground and we pretend like it's a lady who has issues. And we've got to come to a point where we see, I mean, I'm a lawyer by training, and in law we say, even if someone else comes and crashes into your parked car, blame is still apportioned. You still have to get 5% of blame for parking your car and owning one. You never give 100% to the other person. So we always are to blame for one reason or another. And pointing fingers to the other person and never to yourself, I think is a sign of immaturity. Everyone needs to self-reflect and be self-aware and know what it is that is going on, and be able to say sorry and be able to deal with you. So grow yourself. I know we're running out of time. I think we'll have to do a part 2 to talk more about the others, but I spend more time on this because this is where most of the relationships break up. This is really where the rubber meets the road. Pastor M, maybe just a few concluding things around drama in terms of advice. Habo Zungu says, though I and my wife are different or don't agree on some things, there are many areas that I surely know about myself and know she is the only one that would put up with me. Well, she remains my dream and my perfect one. So I love that, what Herbo says here, because sometimes you feel like you've lost the dream. You know, I thought I was getting married. This is not a dream, but you don't realize you still have the dream in there. You just need to work on yourself as she works on herself. But what do you do when you're working on yourself and they're not working on themselves? They're becoming worse and using other ways to deal with drama. Pastor M.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think the first thing I'll say is you can't change a person. You can't change a person. That's the most humbling thing a human being will ever discover. You can't change a person. And you're not responsible for their behavior. Even in God's eyes, you're responsible for your behavior. You cannot change how they act, but you can change how you are. And what happens is, in marriage, you have two people who are together under God. If you're both, remember the thing I said earlier about you marry at the level of your maturity. So if you're noticing major issues in this person, rather than trying to work on them, and I think we talked about this last time, Pastor S, usually we do it, work on them, pray for me. But God's way is work on me, pray for them, because I can't change them. The only one I can change in this marriage is me. So that's the first thing, is just start working on me. And what happens when I start working on me, I start to mature. Now my spouse can choose to stay down here, But what's going to soon become apparent is that there's one mature person and one child left in this relationship. It's a very uncomfortable situation for your spouse. Because at that point, what happens is you realize I'm the child. And what happens is you come in, you have learned this little dance that worked very well. I come in, I call you this, you call me this, and there's a satisfaction that comes out of just being children together. What happens now? Somebody has matured. They've decided I'm not playing that game anymore. They've grown up. So you come and do your childish thing, and they say, all right, if that's how you choose to behave, you know what? You do your thing, and they serve, because they're not serving now as I'm not serving you because of your behavior. I'm serving as unto the Lord. What happens is it becomes very uncomfortable for the other spouse. And at some point, they're going to have to make a decision to grow up. And actually, we've seen that happen many, many times where one person just said, I'm going to stop focusing on you. I'm going to start focusing on God and on myself and fixing myself. I'm going to get counseling if I need counseling. I'm going to get mentoring if I need mentoring. But I'm going to stop making this thing become, it's like I've made my marriage my God. I'm always trying to fix you. I'm always angry because of what you said. I'm always miserable because of what you're acting. And I'm like, no, this is not what life is about. Let me start finding pleasure in my maker. And what happens is when the wife starts to do that, when the husband starts to do that, at first it's actually quite disconcerting for yourself because you're not used to it. So when the person comes, you want to get tempted to dive back in there. But when you make it your commitment, this is what I'm doing, you're going to find very quickly that your spouse starts to feel alone in that. I can call it that. Yeah. And actually what we find is many times, and I'll be honest, in our marriage, she's the one who grew up first. At some point, she just decided, enough, I'm not going to try, and this dream I'm trying to fight for is actually not true. And maybe this is something I just want to add in there. Many times the dream was what I thought marriage should be. But God has a plan that is better than my dream. And what happens is I quit on my dream and start accepting God's plan. Where I start to say, listen, God, okay, this is not the dream. I thought this guy was my dream. But clearly this is not what I thought was there is not what's there. What was your plan for me? And guess what happens? God begins to show you why he brought that person to you. It may not even be for the reason you thought. It could be for completely different reasons. And at that point, guess what happens? You start even to appreciate them differently. So I know what happened with Carol is she stopped fighting me. I found I was the only one throwing those little bombs we used to throw at each other and just became very annoying. Then I found she started being grateful. I think you made a decision to start being grateful. So she started being grateful for small things. She'd tell me, oh, thank you so much for driving us from church today. And I'm thinking, what alien abducted my wife? And like, this is not the person, something changed. And so at some point I realized I was alone in foolishness. And so I had to now start soul searching to say, what do? I don't deserve this. I don't deserve the wife I have right now. I have to start. It's like Hassan was saying, it's like God began to break me as well and to show me my own selfishness and my own foolishness. So I think that's what I challenge the person who's in that space is, if you think that finding another person or moving out of that marriage is what is the right way, what you're doing is actually running away from the problem. But what you really need to do in that place is trust God for your spouse. And just understand, this is, when I made that covenant, it was not just to my spouse, it was to God as well. So it's that cord of three strands. And you know what? As long as the Holy Spirit is here, if one person is not mature, there are two mature people left, me and the Holy Spirit. We're going to keep praying for this marriage. We're going to keep fighting for it. And then also understand that there's an enemy outside there. There's an enemy who doesn't want you. If you win and your spouse loses, the enemy loses. So me and my spouse are together in this. And if the enemy is attacking my spouse and keeping them from being mature, then my role is to now come with the Holy Spirit and start praying for this person. And trust God that God will deliver them from whatever bondage that the enemy is putting on them that's keeping them from being functional.
Maybe, Carol, just something you could add. Thank you. Those are very good words. And I know one of the things that helped me is being able to die to some things. There's some things you realize they're not worth fighting for. Like getting annoyed because your spouse came to the car late and now you don't talk for another one day. You just realize this is stupid. Let me now I put books in the car, but she rarely gets late anymore. And I begin to
fire twins.
You just realize some things are foolish. You just need to die to them. And, you know, marriage is a lot bigger than someone coming to the car late. Or this thing about ladies, whenever you're visited and it's time to go, and now that's when they start stories. And you're thinking, but we have been here all of this time. Why can't you? Should have talked when we arrived. And you get so annoyed, you can't even sleep, and you postpone your marital rights for another few days. And you just find it doesn't make sense. It's just foolish. You need to die to certain necessary expectations and childish things. So it's really about growing up and dying to certain things. Carol, I think there are some deal breakers. I mean, a few people are saying, I had to move because there was violence, or this man couldn't change. He was bringing women over and over again. Are there deal breakers during drama?
Yes. Before I talk about deal breakers, I was just thinking about this, this someone who has taught, who was totally unable to deal with conflict in his marriage, and who opted to move out. But then as we were talking, I came to realize that this guy actually had a lot of trauma regarding conflict, and that at home, when they used to have conflict, it used to be terrible. And so when in marriage it came up again, or of course in marriage, this conflict that comes up, it just could not handle it. And I began to understand that there was trauma, true trauma, and that's why he could not engage, and so on. So I think when God says he hates divorce and he hates separation, I think what God is saying is that there's always hope, and there's always a chance to change, and there's always a chance to grow. And of course, there are deal breakers. Of course, I wouldn't advise any person, to stay in a context where there is violence, or somebody is bringing women, to the home. I think my real prayer is there's always, imagine you can always seek counsel. Even for this person who's bringing women home, you can always go for counseling to try and understand what is going on here. I think you had mentioned at one time the root of the issue. What is the root of the issue? You may find you're bringing these women home, but you're not necessarily becoming any happier. You're not. It doesn't make you necessarily any happier, and so there's that real need of seeking counseling, and even for the person who is being abused, for all parties, basically, there's always the place to seek for counseling. And I think with proper counseling, as we understand the issues, and also prayer, I wouldn't want to miss out the place of prayer, then we are able to overcome some of these challenges. But I wouldn't advocate for violence and staying in a violent situation.
I think Cara is right, because usually what happens is there's stuff that is happening beneath. So I always say, yes, definitely don't put yourself in danger. You cannot endanger your life. You don't want to be the place where you've lost a limb or you've lost life because of being in that space. But don't just run. Figure out, first of all, you need to get help for yourself. And then where possible, call in people who can help the person as well. Because there's stuff that they're going through as well. They're also a victim of the things going on for them. And what I also say is, if you don't get help for yourself, you also need to ask yourself, because here are the things, those tendencies tend to be, they're there. When people say, well, I married this guy, he was an alcoholic, I say, some of those things were there. The signs were there. The neediness was there. You ignored it. And the reason you ignored it is because there's issues in you that are corresponding. There's some issues in you that were equal and there's some dysfunctions in you that were equal and opposite. So usually people who are attracted to alcoholics tend to be codependent. You need to be needed. So you found a needy guy and you saw the signs, but you ignored them. Why? Because you felt good being needed. So why do I need to get help? I need to get help because I'm going to attract somebody else like that, or I'm going to keep attracting that into my life if I don't understand what the mess is with me. But I absolutely agree with my wife here. When we found somebody who's in a violent space, we'll always say, first get you into safety. Then let's try and bring reconciliation, but not before we've gone through counseling to understand and to get help for both parties. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Before we come back and you give us the other two phases, and then we'll discuss them next week, hopefully, that both of you are available because of time. But Hassan, I think as we come to you and just tell us some concluding advice. You've dealt with young couples and some are in drama and in a bad place. Just each one of you to give one advice that you've given that has worked for the others. But also just to say, as I come to you, that I feel, friends, like conflict is a mirror. You get to see yourself for who you really are. And what happens if you're a wise person and you see that you have some issues on your face on a mirror, you don't walk away the same way. You clean yourself up, you make yourself better. So by the time you go back, then you'll be a better person. And so conflict is a gift. Conflict in any relationship is a gift. Just like, the forming, norming, storming, norming, and performing happens in a team. This is like what's happening in a marriage. You're storming so that you can norm. You can get to a place where you say, we can now work together. Conflict is a blessing. Use it as a blessing, not as a way to attack the other person, not as a way just to feel superior, but as a way to grow up and become better. Hassan and Joanne, maybe your advice.
Yeah. Thank you, Pastor Simon, first of all, for having us. And it's really been a joy for us to just sit in, and I think we've drawn so much more wisdom than a few things we've been able to share. Maybe before my wife says something, mine is really to just tell the couples out there, especially the young ones, is that, the spouse you married is not your enemy. And I think when you're going through the drama stage, draw from the things that attracted you to this person at the beginning. In as much as probably the dream veiled your face towards certain weaknesses, but they're actually, they said that there's good in the evil. There's something good in all of us. And commit to walking a journey. And like Pastor M and Pastor Caro said, that commit to working on yourself, because you have areas of deficiency that brings out the bad in the other person. Work on yourself, because you're the only one who can change you with the help of God. But I think one of the things we need to do, spiritually speaking, is to take our hearts out and lay them before God and ask God, please change me. And the other thing is seek counsel. There are solutions out there for the things that you're going through, and find help, and God will help. I'll let John share.
I think I was going to share exactly what he's saying. As a couple, you enter into marriage and you create a fantasy world whereby it's just the two of us, and you're enjoying this journey of just the two of us, and you walk alone. But I would love to speak to couples newly married, even before you get into that journey of marriage. Just find someone who can walk with you, who you can speak to, who you can trust, who you can run to when things are really tight, and not just expose your husband. You expose every bad thing about this person, and then it's hard for you to take back what you said. But seek help, so that you don't walk alone and things are so hard for you because you're trying to protect your marriage. You're trying to protect this person. But if you just seek someone who can help you out, walk with you and stand with you, and if it means telling you, what, it's you who is in the wrong, they tell it to you straight to your face, and not just cover it up and just beautify it, but tell you straight and walk with you the journey. It will be a beautiful journey. Don't die alone. Yes.
Yeah. Excellent. We are coming to a close. One of the things I would say to everyone, drama stage is not a terminal disease. It comes to an end as you work on it. It shouldn't be the way your marriage is forever. It's an opportunity to deal with some issues, to become better, to grow up, to be a better person, so that this marriage eventually you get to where you are going. So just to say to every one of us, let's be committed. I mean, you search for this person, you got them, you spend a lot of money, you got together in marriage. You don't want to throw away a marriage just because of your pride. You've got to get to a place where you let yourself die to certain things. Hassan, you said, pray, the prayer changed me. I think I used to pray, God, change this woman. She really needs you. And then I grew up. I say, actually, let me pray for myself that God will change me. And she began to pray that as well. And we began to get back a lot to gratefulness, gratitude. What is it I see in you? What do I appreciate about you? Because the attitude gets messed up, that everything you're seeing in the light of conflict. So you're not really appreciating what is good, and that needs to change. You need to wear new glasses and begin to see those things you used to see. And there are a few movies you could watch. I know Carol will mention that as we close, but past time, unfortunately, we have to come towards a close. I know there are the two other faces. You could just mention them, and we'll spare them maybe for next week. And then Carol can mention some of the movies and materials available as we come towards a close.
Okay, I think it's very interesting because you talked about storming, norming, performing, forming, all that stuff. It's the same principle when it comes to your marriage. That you have to form. You have to. This is where your dream is. God put Adam to sleep, because if Adam knew the drama of marriage, he probably would have stayed single. And God's plan, fill the earth and subdue, would never have happened. So God knows. Put you to sleep so that you can find the spouse that you need in your life, not the one you want. So that's stage one. And then you get into discovery. I'm sorry, into drama. Drama is when you start realizing, oh my God, this is not my dream. This is not what I planned. And then you start to really try to change the person, and the person's trying to change you, and you get into the misery of that. But it's an inevitable stage, and it's not even a lower stage than the dream. Actually, it's a higher stage. It's like you've moved from standard 1 to standard 5. You're moving along. Don't make the mistake of quitting, because what will happen if you find another person, you're going to start from where? All the way from nursery school again. So that's what I tell people who want to leave. I'm like, look, let's give this the best chance, because when you start again, you're going to start from scratch again with the next person. So that's it. And then there's a stage that comes after that when you start to discover. Discovery stage is when you now start to norm. And you talked about the fact that we storm so that we can norm. That's when you stop trying to change the person and you start accepting the gift that God gave you, because there's a gift that you just don't know. You haven't valued the gift God gave you. And when you start to discover it, oh my goodness, it'll change your mind. Let me say something as a caveat. This question we always get asked: how long does drama take? How long before we get out of drama? We always tell people, in our experience, actually, it was interesting. We were taught this when we were, I think, 5 years married, or 4 years or less. Yeah. And we thought, I know, we're going to be the exception to this. But amazingly, we were not. Typically, drama ends around year 12 of marriage. So just around that season. So we kept thinking, no, we must be out. No, we must be out. Then we realized, actually, when we finally got out, you can actually tell a difference. But you don't have to, not everybody gets out of drama, by the way. There are some people who just refuse to differentiate, refuse to actually start working on me, keep working on each other. They end up we've seen old people who got stuck in drama and never moved out of it. And especially couples who travel a lot. If you're not in the same city, you kind of live in different places, you can actually postpone and avoid dealing with your marriage and leave it like that for all your life. So that's a big danger. And then after discovery, there's a stage called depth. And depth is when you now move from just accepting to celebrating, and start to actually dance around with joy the person God has given you. Start to completely complement each other and become, that's a soulmate that you actually were dreaming about, but you just were going about it the wrong way. And in this stage is where you've lost that place of acting. You know this person with all their messes, all their issues, and you accept them anyway. There's an agape love there that is an incredible thing to see. So that's what the stages are in summary.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So drama goes into next is discovery, and then eventually depth. So there is hope. There is hope. Drama is not the last stage.
And you need to make the choice, because we made a choice when we were in drama, and we made a choice and said, we're not going to just quit. We're going to work on this thing until we get to that depth. We want to express it for ourselves. And I can tell you, it's a worthwhile battle. I mean, I'm so glad we made that decision in the middle of our drama.
Yeah. Okay, Carol, there's some movies we could watch and the program that you do, and then I'll also mention our programs before we close.
Oh, I see. Okay. There definitely, I think one of the things that we say is that you cannot walk alone. I think that has been a conversation that has come out very evidently. And in the council, plans fail because of lack of, many counselors. And so there are programs that we have developed. There's one called NDOA. NDOA is a program that is offered to people who are getting married. And it's like the premarital training program that is there. It's a 10-week program. And it's done with facilitators, and it is done with couples who are so passionate about that ministry and who actually share their lives. That's very interesting. They go up over and above, their call of duty. I just found that very interesting the other day. So that is NDOA. It's also offered for people who have never done, who are married, but they never did.
Want to enrich.
Yeah, who want to enrich their marriage. They never ever did a premarital course. And so it is available. And then the other one that we do is called Couples and Money. And with Couples and Money, what we discovered after we did NDOA is that many couples were struggling, and finances, that is a big thing. And it's not just a Kenyan thing or an African thing, it's a global issue. Finances are. And so just learning how to work together as far as our finances are concerned. And so that's another, that one is an online program, again, 10 weeks, that we also offer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, either of those, I mean, are fantastic. But what we find is, find something to invest in your marriage. So there are other things out there, but just find things where you can get mentored, you can have people walk with you. So both in NDOA and in Couples and Money, they're very centered around the concept of mentorship. Finding couples who've gone before, who can share their life with you. And so I think whatever it is, just find those kinds of spaces that can help you engage in that way.
Thank you. And I know there's some movies we watch, like Why Did I Get Married, that dramatizes a drama so well. And you could watch and discuss with your spouse some of the things you see there, and a few other movies that are available around marriage. And also inviting you to some of our programs at Transform Nations. I know in this next week, we are starting a mentoring course for the boys. If you have boys between 7 and 17, and we're almost running out of spaces. I think we have over 150 signed up. So if you want to sign up your son for that mentoring course, please go ahead. We also have Man Enough and Eze, which is a woman enough, intentional mom and intentional dad. Feel free to join in. We have those details on our page. Well, thank you very much, Maurides. We have learned so much. We look forward to next week. I hope you can be available. We finish up the faces. Thank you so much, Hassan and Joanne. Maybe last words from you as we invite you, Hassan, to pray for us. There are a lot of people who are in a bad place and they don't know whether they're going to make it through their marriage. So we'd like just to finish with a prayer and a blessing for them. And our desire is that most marriages will, all marriages will recover and will end well. And the desires of both people will eventually be fulfilled. And where people have split and remarried, like there's a question on blended families, we'll take up that next week. But we pray for blessing for marriages. So Hassan and Joanne, you may bless us. If you have a last word, then you bless us.
Thank you. Maybe mine would also be to invite those that will be around Kigali. Right now, we are in virtual spaces. Our church is planning a marriage webinar or e-conference end of this month, 30th and 31st. And really, the issue is really to talk about succeeding in marriage through crisis. I don't know about you in Kenya, but we had so many marriages that were hit because of COVID-19. Couples that were avoiding each other, taking their stress to work, had to stay indoors, inbound for over 60 days. And so many things that had been hidden under the carpet just blew over. So we had so many divorces just spike immediately after the lockdown, and we've had a lot of issues in marriages, and obviously the stress of people losing jobs and security and all that. So we're going to arrange a conference around that, and I'd like to invite those I've seen so many people watching from CLA and Kigali and Rwanda. Please look out for that announcement. It should be out by end of next week so that we can be able to learn together. We'll have Pastor Lincoln and Grace from the UK who will be leading us through this. Yeah, that's my 2 cents, and allow us to pray as we close. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you. We thank you for the gift of marriage. Marriage was conceived by you, and marriage is sustained by you. You understand the ins and outs of marriage. You are the beginning and the end of marriage. And Lord, you call us to you when we enter this covenant of marriage. Marriage mirrors our relationship, the church, with our bridegroom. We are called the bride of Christ. And Lord, unless we have lenses that view marriage from your perspective, it is hard to walk this journey. So Lord, I pray in the name of Jesus that many who have strife, whose marriages have been rifted by so many reasons, oh Lord, I pray that we'll lift our heads to look to you again and consider, what do you say about marriage? Lord, I pray Ephesians 5:25 and following to the couples listening to us and those that will be able to watch this broadcast later. Lord, may we humble ourselves. As husbands, may we take that place of headship, which is actually a place of service, and love our wives as Christ loved the church that he gave himself up for. And Lord, we pray, oh Lord, that wives would submit to their husbands, not in a posture of feeling subjugated or feeling subordinate. We're actually equals in your sight, but submission is a posture that you took, our Lord Jesus Christ, as you submitted unto the Lord. And your equality with God the Father was not taken away, but that posture allowed for a working within the Trinity. And Lord, you invite us to be able to mirror that even as we walk together. Lord, I pray that we'll commit to this journey. Lord, I pray that we'll look at each other not as enemies, but those that are broken and in need of help. Lord, may we look for help around us, especially those of us that struggle. And Lord, help will come our way. And Lord, we pray that we will begin to work on ourselves, each one individually. Like Pastor M said, can only change us and pray for the other. Lord, may we begin to walk that journey of personal change, that the covenant of marriage will be fruitful, that will make the transition from drama to discovery, then eventually to depth. Lord, we pray a blessing upon each and every marriage that has tuned in. But there's so many marriages, oh Lord, that are struggling out there. May they look to you because you alone are the solution to marriages. We thank you for Pastor Simon, for Sophie, for Transform Nations and the work of transformation they are doing that is permeating the globe. Lord, continue to anoint them, continue to fill their cups, oh Lord, and continue to show yourself strong to them. We thank you and we bless you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Well, really grateful to all of you who have lots of conversation going on online. Thank you very much to everyone. Feel free to invite some people to watch this hereafter. Invite them to it so that we can continue with this conversation. We believe in marriage. We believe it's a blessing and a gift. Let's continue to support it and work on it. And for those of us who are Christians, let's just remember there's a lot of just a spiritual battle against marriage, because it's a pointer to Christ and the church. And so it's not only a social, physical experience, it's a spiritual experience, and we need to involve God because marriage is God's idea. May the Lord bless you, everyone. Thank you very much, Moridis, for being available. We really appreciate your advice and conversation. You're muted.
Oh, I was going to say,
much.
thank you so much for inviting us. I forgot to just mention one thing when Carol was talking about programs. We're actually doing a Facebook Live called Noah. So we're just going to, we're actually starting this Tuesday. So we'll actually just be doing conversations very similar to this, but it's really, again, it's what Pastor Hassan said, just marriages are so challenged in this season, and just really wanting to input and to just mentor couples. And so just sorry I just thought, I'm so excited that you're doing it this way. And first of all, thanks for having us on. We're really excited to be here. And also to meet my old friend, Hassan. It's been a while since we saw each other.
We are so honored to share this platform with you, the Moridis. God bless you.
All right. Thank you, good people. Thank you, Rwandans. We're glad that you joined us, and people from Uganda and other places. May the Lord bless you all. Have a good night, and let's keep our marriages going. They are worth the fight. God bless you.
Amen. Bless you.
All right.